This is Orlando Sentinel Now.
Hello, it's Wednesday, August 25th. Rich Pope here with Leslie Postal and Matt Palm. They have our topics we're going to touch on today, and today we'll talk about Orange County schools and a 60-day mask mandate starting Monday. Also, we're going to find out about a theater at the Loch Haven Park area coming. We'll touch on that one as well, but we're going to start here with Leslie Postal. We're going to talk about that 60-day mask mandate in Orange County schools. Leslie, what's going on?
The school board decided last night that starting Monday, every student has to wear a mask unless they have a medical exemption, which should be a very small portion of students. And that will be in effect at least 60 days. This was done in response to what many see as a very alarming rise in COVID-19 cases in the public schools.
Yeah, those numbers continue to climb, and concerns that students are quarantined and out and it could impact whole schools.
Right. In fact, in neighboring Osceola County, we saw that yesterday. The district announced that Celebration K-8 school was shutting down for the rest of the week. Students were going to have to do online lessons. So that's about 1,600 students that are suddenly at home, presumably throwing a wrench in some parents' work weeks and certainly disrupting the education of a lot of kids. Even though they're certainly going to be, doing online lessons. But, I think we all learned in the last year and a half that is not as desirable as being in a classroom with your teacher.
Yeah, big questions on this one as far as how this goes with DeSantis and his ban on mask mandates, to push back on that one.
Right. I mean, clearly the governor has been very clear that he thinks parents, not school boards, should decide whether their children wear masks to school. But Orange is now one of 10 school districts that has said they have the responsibility to keep campuses safe, and they think they need a mask mandate to do that right now. And there's 2 court cases already in the works by parents challenging DeSantis's mandate, and Orange County is considering a legal challenge to how that was adopted. They said Broward was as well. So there's certainly going to be a lot of pushback, but clearly the governor is also pushing back. His administration already moving to yank some pay or some money from Alachua and Broward. So it'll definitely be something to follow. Interestingly, I just wanted to add, I mean, it's only 10 school districts, which doesn't sound like that many, but it's most of Florida's big ones. So they educate about half of Florida's 2.8 million students. So about 1.4 million kids are in those 10 school districts. So the mask mandate is really covering a lot of Florida's public school students at this point.
Tell me how this unfolded with the Orange County School Board. It didn't seem like it actually went to a vote. How did it happen?
Correct. It was a very long, confusing, and sometimes frustrating meeting for, I think, both the board members and parents, those who wanted a mask mandate and those who didn't. But in the end, the board decided that their existing face mask policy gave them just their existing powers gave them the ability to just by consensus direct the superintendent to do this. And that's what they did. I would say 5 board members of 8 were very clearly in favor of a mandatory mask mandate for everybody. 3 of them sounded like they might have wanted what they called a more surgical approach, that maybe they just impose it on schools with really high caseloads. I think the others thought that would be really unworkable, and it was better to have a district-wide mandate. In the end, that's what they agreed. The superintendent said she would recommend that it be for 60 days starting Monday, and they all agreed, but they did not take a formal vote, no.
Yeah, so how does this work now for the parents that opted out of their children wearing masks? Is that just completely thrown out the window?
Yes, unless they have or can get a medical exemption, which needs to be signed by a doctor or there's a few other medical professionals. Yes, their children are expected to wear masks starting Monday. Now, whether they will or whether they plan to challenge that, we'll have to see. But yes, everyone is expected to be in a mask. Now, keep in mind, only about 8% of parents have sent in the opt-out notes. So that does suggest that the majority of parents, at least in Orange County, felt like masks were the thing to do, at least right now.
Yeah, interesting. What makes this tricky too, and in the board's favor, is that some highly reputable organizations have pretty much said this is the way to go with students and kids at this age group.
Right. I mean, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the American Academy of Pediatrics, not to mention, heads of infectious disease and pediatrics and all our local hospitals have all said, this is what needs to happen. Like you said, I mean, children under 12 cannot be vaccinated. That's a lot of our school kids. So they're at risk. They're at risk for getting it and for spreading it, they've said. So yes, that was a lot what the board member said is the medical community is begging us to do this.
All right. Well, you can read about that update and more as they come out. Appreciate that. Stay with Leslie Postal. All right, we're going to change gears here and go to Matt Palm, and we're going to talk theater and Loch Haven Park getting a new theater opening up. Should be a welcome addition. Matt, what's happening with them?
Well, it's some good news for the arts, Rich. We've had a year of a lot of bad news from the arts, so this is real exciting. The theater is called Renaissance Theater Company, and it was founded by Donald Roop, who many people know. He is a local playwright. He has worked a lot at the Fringe Festival. He has, debuted his own productions, taken one to New York, and most recently, he was the founder and the director of the theater program at Central Florida Community Arts, which he did for several years. So he and one of his board members have located a prime location. It's right on the sort of the edge of Loch Haven Park. It's right at the Princeton Orange intersection there, across the street from where the old theater downtown used to be. So it was kind of a full circle moment for the arts there as well. A lot of people still miss theater downtown. This building is right next door, and he is going to be opening his theater company there in October.
So, Matt, Loch Haven Park becoming pretty much a big hub for the arts, and it's a nice addition to have one more in it.
Right. A lot of people always think of Loch Haven Park as sort of the heartbeat of Orlando's cultural scene. And, you may know that's where you can find things like Orlando Shakes, the Orlando Repertory Theater, Orlando Museum of Art, the Manello Museum. And there's already a lot of focus on that area as a growing area. The Manello is planning a huge expansion, a giant building they want to put there. And of course, Harriet's Orlando Ballet Center just fairly recently opened right on the outskirts of Loch Haven Park. So this theater will actually extend that cultural corridor all the way down to Orange Avenue along Princeton.
So, Renaissance Theater Company, it has been around already, though, right?
Yeah, they've done one production. They did at the Fringe Festival this year, but it's still, it's quite new. I mean, they've just done the one production, and that was sort of a traveling production, I guess you'd say, since they did it at the Fringe, where you just rent a venue for the length of the festival and set it up there. So this is the first time this company will have a permanent home. And Rich, I saw it yesterday. It is a huge home and just going to be a wonderful space for theater. It's a large warehouse building. It's set back a little from Princeton, off McRae, if anyone knows that little tiny side street. But it really is, it's about 15,000 square feet, which is, enormous compared to some of the tiny theaters we have around Central Florida. And it has an arts connection in its history. After being a warehouse for a time, the Orlando Ballet used it for their school. While they were sort of in between buildings, many will remember the Orlando Ballet has had a long road to find a permanent home. And so it's already sort of set up with what they use, the ballet used as studios, but the main studio could easily become a theater. I say easily, of course, it's going to take a lot of work to build it out, but the bones of the building are set up very well to have a lobby, a theater. Donald has big plans to have also one room will have a bar in it that can be used also as a smaller performance space for live music, cabaret, after show hangout, get-togethers. So there's big plans and there's a lot of space to make the plans happen.
Yeah, Matt, you mentioned the excitement about this one, but not to sugarcoat things a little bit. This is a challenging time to start a theater company in a new venue. They've got to have that in the back of their minds.
Well, they do. And, there are precautions that will be in place. We're speaking of masks a lot today. So, patrons will be expected to wear masks. They're going to monitor the COVID situation. And for their first production in October, it's going to be a vampire themed production, in the spirit of Halloween coming up at the end of the month. And it's not going to be a traditional sit down in seats with people all around you and watch. It's going to be more of an experience where you sort of follow the action through this giant building. And I think they'll have a lot more control that way of smaller groups separating people. It'll help them sort of ease into this, and also helps them because, that it's October actually isn't that far away. And it gives them a way to use the building as it is now while they finish up their plans of how they're going to renovate it, how they're going to set up a more traditional theater in it.
That sounds really cool. Let's talk about some other things that we can expect from them. Do they have any idea of what else they'd like to put on in this venue?
Yeah, Donald is really committed to new plays as a playwright himself, but he has stressed to me it's not going to be just his own works that he's going to show there. He really wants to encourage a lot of local artists, give them a space to show off their new work. And so he's looking at stuff like that. He wants to do things that maybe are not what we think of as traditional theater. This vampire show in October is a good example of that. You know, he said to me, I want people who don't even think they're theater people to find things to do here and experience the arts in ways that they might not have expected. So I think we're going to see some avant-garde stuff, some certainly unexpected things coming.
All right. Well, good news there. You can read about the opening, and of course, Matt will probably be following that show when it opens in October, so keep an eye on that. But we're going to go ahead and push pause for today. Appreciate you being with us. Until tomorrow, I'm Rich, Matt, and Leslie. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Watch Orlando Sentinel Now live every weekday at noon on our Facebook page and on orlandosentinel.com.